culture, how important the idea of culture is in religion, and how we kind of recognize that the world should be united, or at least people of varying nations and ethnic origins should be united. It's very difficult because of the particular cultures that each of these groups belongs to and embraces. And often a culture really isn't necessarily a conscious embrace, but it's a subconscious moving toward a particular set of beliefs, assumptions. For an example, when you look historically in the Christian religion, as far as the exploits into other lands, the Africa and South America and North America, what was considered bringing together, various nations, type people, was simply trying to assimilate a particular people into the culture of another culture. You take a Native American and you name him, John or Zachariah or something, or you take Africans and give them so-called Christian names. And that doesn't work. And so then we take something like the teachings of Jesus, and rather than determining the culture of Jesus and trying to fit ourselves into the culture of Jesus, we take Jesus and we fit Jesus into our own culture. And so we have today what we call the Christian religion, say in America, for example. And it brings resentment to many people who have been victimized, or whose ancestors have been victimized by this so-called Christian religion. As you know, I'm a minister. Okay, so I take very personal the Jesus part, but as an African American, my perspective of what Jesus is about is different than a lot of Caucasian American or Caucasian ministers. And so I had an opportunity to speak to one a very close Caucasian minister yesterday. And some of these subjects, I don't like to bring up because they are somewhat taboo in mixed crowds, but I think we're coming to a place where if we really want this to work, if we really want to be successful, we have to address sensitive issues, sensitive topics within Christianity to take us to the next step in this thing. Otherwise, it's going to be just as it is. The old saying, the most segregated hour, in America is Sunday because the church isn't on. And it's true. And that is simply because we find ourselves more comfortable not addressing certain controversial issues. And see, the problem we have is, so then we find churches that are not segregated on Sundays, that are a mixture. But still, the truths are just being ignored, and the realities are being glossed over. I think it's really done a disservice to Christianity because we don't really have a full message. We don't really have a real message. The message is convoluted. And so the message, rather than drawing folks, ostracizes people and turns people off. And we find generations and generations, millions upon millions of people believing that they have rejected God, whether because they reject the message or because religious folks have told them that they rejected God. But the reality is, in my opinion, is that more often than not, the people that are rejecting are not rejecting God, they're rejecting the so-called messengers of God and the particular message that they've presented. And so there are certain truths in the Bible, certain realities that if you could step back out of sort of, I don't want to say the brainwashing or the misunderstanding or misinformation, you'd begin to see a few things that things aren't necessarily the way we've been taught. But again, these are taboo subjects, very sensitive subjects. I think the first thing we really need to address is what we believe is the inerrant, infallible truth. And we swear that it is. This is inerrant and infallible truth. How do we know that? How do we know that? How do we know the things that we're not going to budge on, and the things that are right, and that are just not even, worth discussing or debating with someone, or challenging the truths of it? Well, there's nothing. Because even the Christian religion, I mean, all the religions, but we're talking about Christianity right now, it's all about belief. So what does that mean, belief? Belief isn't fact. Belief isn't knowing. Belief is what we've chosen to believe, and that is not fact. That is not infallible. That is not an unmovable fact, what I've chosen to believe. So and we're just using Christianity, but it holds true for all religions. Whatever stance you've taken in Christianity that you're standing on, and that you know is infallible and inerrant and all this, you don't know that. And again, I'm a believer, and I'm a minister, and I'm in this thing for the long haul. But the reality is, anything that we have embraced is simply what we've chosen to believe. And so that's really the foundation. That may not be the foundation of Jesus or the foundation of Peter or whatever else we've chosen, to try to understand. But all that we know for a fact is that we know no facts. We don't know for sure. But that's okay, because it's what we've chosen to believe, and that's what makes it special. But in all humility, that's the direction that we have to come from. You can't scoff at someone because they don't embrace what you've chosen to believe. You can't ridicule someone because they don't embrace what you have chosen to believe. You can't condemn someone to hell for eternity, forever and ever, simply because they have not embraced what you have chosen to believe. And that's all that you have. That's all that I have, is what we've chosen to believe. And that's the foundation of where we are at right now. We don't know. And see, it's very arrogant for us to proclaim that we do know. And that's been the problem with, and if we go back historically, within the Christian religion in this nation and in other nations, where the Europeans went into, say, Africa, or Europeans went into South America, or Europeans went to the islands, or Europeans came here, that they came with a particular agenda to take what was not theirs. Now, they used God, they used Christianity, and I don't know to what extent it may have been intentional, okay? But the reality is, and there's an old Native American saying, is that when you came, we had the land and you have the Bibles. Now we have the Bibles and you have our land. And as funny as that might seem, just think about that for a minute, okay? And so you take folks going into lands where people are less insightful and understanding than they are, and you have power, you have weaponry, and then you have this book that is God, and as a control mechanism to move the people to embrace what you have brought. You've attached punishment, you've attached eternal suffering to your message if you don't accept what I'm giving you. That's just the reality of history. Christian history in this nation and in the other lands. The exploits. And so you also had Europeans coming from Europe as carriers of diseases that they were immune to, that they were simply carriers of. And so you come into a native land that has not been exposed to the diseases that you have been exposed to in Europe, and so you are simply a carrier. You're not sick from the disease, but you're carrying the disease, and you wipe out half a population of native people on this particular land. And they don't know what's going on. And then you tell them, this is because you've rejected the God that I've brought here. That is a fear tactic, and it's very effective. But just consider that. Okay, consider where our belief system came from, and what we have embraced and what we have chosen to believe. Okay? Now I'm suggesting today, so then we have still that same message. We're not suffering from these diseases and all this, but we still have that same threat in the message. Accept embrace what I am giving you, or you will be eternally lost forever and ever and ever and ever. And of course you say, that's right, okay, I believe that. Because this is what's been ministered. This is what's been taught since the Europeans came to this land and to every other land where indigenous people were their victims, were their prey. And so this is the message that we have grown up with for hundreds of years. Of course we believe it.